By Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. He serves on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, you join a conversation in progress about the sadistic nature of a person who would feel so proud of the act of shooting a puppy in the face that she or he would write about it in their own biography. That is the character of the person in charge of the agency, whose agents have shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens 17 days apart. What is the status of that vote on Friday for DHS funding?
The vote will fail because every Democrat is going to oppose the funding bill that's currently pending before the Senate until the Republicans agree to strip the DHS bill out and move forward on the 5 funding bills that will get enough votes to go to the president's desk. This can be done if the Majority Leader, John Thune, just offers an amendment. We can split the bills, and then we will both pass the funding for the Pentagon, for education, for health care, and critical priorities, but then focus on the need for the dramatic reforms of the abuses that we're seeing within DHS.
Why wasn't the story that Kristi Noem tells in her own voice, in her own writing, about shooting her own dog enough to give you pause about her character? Why did you vote to confirm Kristi Noem?
Anybody who's been a governor, especially a governor who's elected a couple of times, can be a cabinet secretary. I knew she was going to be confirmed. I have 8.5 million constituents that need services every day from the Department of Homeland Security. I wish it were not the case that cabinet secretaries hold it against your constituents if you vote against them, but this is real life. I sure wouldn't vote for her now. She's done a horrible job, and I think I have some credibility in making that claim because I was willing to vote for her as a governor. As you know, I was a governor. I think governors often make really good cabinet secretaries. I did cast that vote for her. The administration would be doing itself a huge favor if they got rid of her and Steve Miller right now. They would really help themselves out if they ditch both of them.
Trump has turned immigration into a vulnerability. It was once viewed as a Republican advantage issue. His approval rating, I think, on immigration is as low as or lower than his approval on the economy, which is also in the mid-30s. How are Democrats now thinking about turning this issue into an advantage for them?
Well, I think the issue before we get to the politics is we just want the abuse to stop. You know, you don't have to be a spiritual person that when somebody named Good is shot and killed on the streets in cold blood, it should make the nation step back and ask themselves the question, what the hell is going on? And so before we think about how Democrats should deal with this, let's just deal with the abuses that are right on the page right before us. I was a mayor and I had a police force. I was a governor, I had a Virginia State police force. This is not the way law enforcement should operate. Under any circumstance, there needs to be accountability, there needs to be clear rules and training. Why are federal law enforcement agents now subject to standards lower than town police forces all across Virginia and all across the nation? Why does the administration immediately, when there's an instance of violence like this, start to lie dramatically about the victims, calling them domestic terrorists or would-be assassins? The scale of the lie is proportionate to the depth of the shame or the guilt you feel when something like this happens. I think a dam has broken with this administration's incompetence and cruelty, and I think it's not only the American public that sees it, but people around the world are seeing this and thinking, this isn't just Donald Trump, this is America, unless we do something to demonstrate otherwise, and I believe that we will.
Speaking of governors, Governor Josh Shapiro was on this program yesterday and said he believes that state attorneys general should be charging federal agents. Do you agree with that, and do you support that? And which ones would you like to see charged?
Well, absolutely. Anybody who breaks the law should be held accountable. And, you know, here's standard operating procedure, Nicole. In most communities in this country, if there's an officer involved in an officer-involved shooting, they get put on administrative leave right away, not as a prejudgment that they were wrong, but until an independent investigation is done. The Trump administration has instead immediately tried to come out and vindicate the officers before there was an investigation and spread the most scurrilous lies about the people that they have killed or shot. So let's insist upon standards that hold these officers to the same standards that local and state officials have. Yeah, I don't think I can just freelance and name 6 people that should be prosecuted, but absolutely, state and local prosecutors should have the tools at their disposal to go after anybody who violates the law, including officials of these DHS agencies.
Senator, thank you for joining us on these stories today.
Absolutely.
To be continued. And we appreciate you.